Hi, and welcome to my tutorial about how to bake vertex colors and lighting into a texture map. So, this is called Megalodapus. He's a prehistoric lemur, size of like a black bear. Used to live in Madagascar, but they were delicious and people ate them all. So now we have to 3D model them to show people what they're like. See here, I'm going to get started. First step is UV unwrapping. So this isn't a UV unwrapping tutorial, but I have a few tips for that as well. So in object mode, I'm gonna pick the three models I want to be mapped together: the tree, the plane, the green platform, and the Megalodapus. Hit tab for edit mode. I'll just switch to a shading view. Switch to UV editor for that side, and see that it's tried. But I'm going to hit A to select all, and you see the mess of polygons there because it hasn't been sorted out yet. So with everything selected, hit U, the Smart UV project, sure, and see that it's been arranged in a neat position. Enlarge this, zoom in. So it did a good job. That means the model was clean, so I'm happy that that worked out. But we can optimize this. So this model is going to be for VR, where it's very resource intensive. So to take load off of the processing, we can help it out. For example, we can select the faces that aren't going to be seen because that's the bottom side of the platform. You see that selected on this little corner window, the matching UV. I can hit S to scale and shrink it down. It's nothingness. No one's going to see this. I'm sure I could make it smaller, but that's out of the way enough. So I'm happy with that. Also, I can pick the sides here because they're going to have a uniform lighting. People aren't going to focus on those unless if they're weird. So I can also shrink these down, move the cursor here, hit S, move my little mousey down. There, that's a good small size. So then that gives more room for the actual things that will be visible. Speaking of, people, when they see this model, they're not gonna like focus on the back, right? People aren't gonna just stay, ooh, look at these. It's a nice polygons, but not gonna sit there and look at those. They're gonna look at the face. So we're gonna over accentuate the face because that's more important to get a less jaggy type of appearance on it. So I pick part of it, and then on a Mac, command plus sign, control on Windows, and it'll just expand my selection too far. I can pull it back pretty good. Got the head. That's a pretty decent job, actually. So it showed the matching UV there, and I can also manually shift, drag, get the ears. All right. Holding down shift to add to the selection. That should be good. Oops. I missed some inner ear stuff. All right. So, looking good. So I selected the UVs, and this is going off script, but I'm gonna select linked. Yeah, so it's gonna it added a little bit that was connected to it from the UV project. So I can scale this up, the opposite of what I did before with the things I didn't want. I can make these take up more space in the texture map. So that looks good, because we're good for this demo purpose. So it goes past those borders, which isn't good, right? So I'm gonna hit A again, it will select everything. Then it's time for some magic. I have this Blender add-on called UV Packmaster 2. It costs a few bucks, but it's well worth it. It's so fun to watch what it does. And what it does is gonna try to optimally pack the UVs into that space. So settings I have, important ones, pixel margin. So I'm planning on a 2048 by 2048 texture, and so I believe from my Googling that the margin should be 32. So when I bake it, I can add 16 pixel borders and they won't run into each other. Let's see, other settings. Heuristic, just give it some search time, give a few seconds to try to even more optimally find a good pattern. I have 10 seconds to spare. And if everything looks good, so I would just hit pack and it'll run its thing. It's only getting around 0.222 coverage. Oh, I know what happened, sorry. But now that I've done this wrong, you don't have to. Texture size, I said I wanted 2048, but it's set for 1024. So 2048, it'll adjust its scaling appropriately. That's a good learning experience. Now the current area, because it's using the appropriate margins now, is almost half the texture file, which is pretty good because I have to account for the bleed and all that stuff. So I'll hide this. You can see how nicely it's like Tetris. So satisfying. Okay, so the UV is set. I'm just save just to be sure, and let's get our texture file going. So I'm gonna hit new text for texture file. Gonna make it 2040H. 2040H. We're not gonna do alphas. There's nothing transparent on it. 32-bit float. You sort that out. I don't do it. So there's the texture file, and we'll save it just to give it a good format and see all the things I have. So actually, I've been experimenting with OpenEXR, so you can pick your own favorite graphics file. Websites say PNG, but OpenEXR seems to have really good compression that seems to take the load off of the processing in the VR. So, but don't super trust me on that. The zip seems to be what Wikipedia says is the best one, or the one that talks about the most. So that's how I got those settings. You can do what you want for those. All right, and here add image texture. Slap this bad boy down there. Whoops. I'm gonna pick the one text. So text here, I selected it. So then I mess with the baking settings. Make sure cycles is the render engine, or there's no baking option. Bake is down here. These settings. I believe that I can uncheck some of these. I know it's doing ambient occlusion, but diffuse is super important, but this seems to be a good combination. Margin's already set at 16. It's going to clear image just to make it clear and nice. Make sure that's not checked if you're just overwriting something, but here it's a fresh file. And make sure the little white outline, so we're going to tell it to bake all this cool lighting stuff into that square texture file. So all these effects, which are rendered in real time right now, is going to be, there they are, is this going to be painted on. So it's like an optical illusion, but a fun one. All right, so hit bake is going to take a while because my computer isn't really handling this, built for this, but I'll use them. Nope, I didn't select what it's supposed to do. Okay, got those three here. It's going to tell that to bake these three things into that file. Okay, with the magic of video editing, I will cut through the waiting time and we'll see what happened as the results. We are, and there might be some continuity errors because I ran into some error not related to my steps, which are rock solid. But it has finished baking, and so now we're going to hook up the nodes. So it's going to use this texture instead of doing the light and vertex color calculations. So first step is to save this image, and it will have it show up in the view window. So this is the old node setup, and we're going to turn it into, I think I already did this. This is also not the first take after the baking was done. we're going to switch to this new material, and I'll just walk you through what the material is. It is now just a texture file and is connected to a background shader. So a background shader, how do you get that? Is by going here, material properties, and surface, and you pick background, and it'll put that here. We're not using the principled shader, but by selecting background, we're going to tell A-Frame is the VR platform I'm using. It's going to tell A-Frame, which is based off of 3.js, that we do not want any light effects in VR, that the lighting effects are here, they're done in Blender, don't mess with it further. So setting the shader to background tells the A-Frame to do it that way. So we can see that we hooked up the middle Mega Adapus, and you see the shadows, but we're in a mode where there's no lighting effects. This viewport shading, these are painted on shadows that we had baked into it. So it's looking good. So same for the tree. We're gonna get that hooked up using the old shader here. New shader, boom. Looking good. Let's paint it on shadows. Very striking. And then lastly for the plane, same deal. New shader. There, subtle little shadowies. Shadow buddies. Anyway, no more ad-libbing. So the nodes are done. Make sure they're all set to the new background shader. Save. And then we can now export to GLTF, which is the preferred file format. So command click those three to export together. Sorry, not spot, but plane. Or should not spot. Okay, so it gets these three together. Export GLTF. Make sure the settings are good. Selected objects, so it's not going to do everything that's there. I have backup models and all that stuff. No cameras or lights. Transforms good. We actually don't need vertex colors, so get those out of here. Get those kilobytes out of here. But we do need the rest. And make sure animation is off. There's no animation for this one. And we'll overwrite it, export, and it should be done. So we're going to fire up the GLTF viewer. All right, so this is the web-based GLTF viewer. Is gltf-viewer.donmccurdy.com. I'm going to drag the GLTF file, GLB. I had it all packed into one binary file. There it is. So the lighting is all baked in. No actual lights in this scene, but a lot of dramatic goings on there. So, all right. So this is the end of the tutorial. Hope you learned a lot. Smash that like button. Oh yeah, one thing is this GLB file is just, how big is this? It's 2.9 megs. And it's mostly that texture file, but the texture file itself, the EXR, is 50 megs. So somehow it compressed all that and all that model stuff into a file that is 3 megs. So pretty cool. All right, see ya.